Hello and welcome back to Tips and Time Savers. I'm Danny Roxon. In today's lesson, I'm going to show you how you can speed up data entry on a form using a name range. We're going to create a name range of non-contiguous cells, typical of what you would expect to see on a form. For example, the cells that we want to select are these cells which are to the right of our labels. They're non-contiguous. We want our user who's doing the data entry, who is probably not as proficient in Excel as we are, to be able to just do the typing, hit enter, and have the navigation move to the next cell. Now, there's one problem. Remember, I started up here in cell B2, held down Control as I selected each cell in turn. The problem here when you use that approach is that, look down here, H2. H2 is actually the active cell. It's really not what I intended. I made my first selection and continued down. So look what's going to happen. I'll hit 1, 2, 3, press enter, and now I come back up here to B2, the cell that I had intended to be my starting cell. 2, 3, 4, and you see how hitting enter moves me down in the order that I wish to go into. So let me show you how to correct this. What we want to do, and I do recommend that you have some labels over here, is that when you go to select your non-contiguous range, select the cell which is actually going to be the second cell in the range. So here I have C2, which is going to be my second actual entry. When I apply this, hold down Control, continue to hold down Control as I make my selection in the order that I want, and then finish off up here with B2. So B2 is the active cell. You can always tell the active cell in a range because the other cells which are not active have a shading. The active cell always has just that border around it. So now that I've selected it and they're in the order that I want, I'll come up here into the name bar and I'll create a name. Why don't I call this data entry cells. Now remember that when we create names, they must begin with a letter and they can contain no spaces. When we name a cell up here in the name box, make sure that you hit enter. So now what I can do is I can just come over here, and when I highlight the cell, it's going to highlight that range. Now, one of the beauties there is, of course, I could come over and I could apply some shading to it, so it would make it even easier. So let's just come over here and I'll apply a shade over here. And the beauty here is that when I select those cells, now I can put my entry. So 1, 2, 3, enter, 2, 3, 4. Now, of course, when you hit enter, remember it's going to come back here to the top. And obviously I could put some other inputs in there. I might be able to use data validation. So data tab on the ribbon, come over here to data validation, and I might wish to put an input message or something else in there. So the trick here is that when you name or create a name range, make sure that you make the second cell in the range your first cell. So over here, I'll start here in F4, hold down Control as I'm making my selection of the cells, and the cell that I wish to be the first cell, I want to make that the last selection in the range. So I'll just come over here and I'll put in here DR and hit enter. So now when I come over here into the name drop down box, DR, there is that cell entry. Now with them all selected, what you can also do with an entry when you have a selection of cells in a range, a name range, is I could enter a formula and have it accepted in every cell in the range. So for example, if I wanted to put today's date in using the today function, equals today, left parentheses, right parentheses. What you do when you have multiple cells selected and you want to have the same entry in all of them, don't hit enter, use control enter. So by using control enter, I put the formula into each cell in the range. So I could do it another way, equals 1, 2, 3 plus 3, 4, 5, control enter, and now each cell gets that entry. So there you've seen how you can use non-contiguous cells in a name range to speed up data entry. And that is one of the tips that I share with you on my DVD, the 50 Best Tips for Excel 2007. And I'll look for you in the next lesson.